Ahmad had always considered his life steady, perhaps even enviable. At 35, he had a well-paying job, a comfortable home, and a wife he believed loved him dearly. Their life together was a quiet rhythm. Work, occasional dinners out, and weekends spent watching movies or taking short drives in nearby towns. To anyone else, it seemed perfect. To Ahmad, it was enough. But over the past few months, a subtle unease had begun to creep into his chest. Lara, his wife of 7 years, had become increasingly distant. She no longer laughed at his jokes with the same warmth, and her touch, once comforting and tender, had grown brief and distracted. Even small things began to feel different. The way she would hide her phone behind her back when he entered the room, or the way her smile occasionally flickered with a nervousness he couldn't place. Ahmad dismissed these thoughts at first, telling himself relationships go through phases, that maybe the monotony of life had simply dulled their spark. Despite these nagging doubts, Ahmad clung to the comfort of routine. Each morning, he brewed his coffee while Lara prepared breakfast, and they exchanged polite, warm greetings. Even when she spent hours scrolling on her phone in silence, he told himself it was harmless. Perhaps she was stressed from work or caught up in social media, like so many people were these days. Yet, a tiny voice at the back of his mind whispered warnings, whisperings he refused to entertain fully. Ahmad prided himself on his ability to stay calm in the face of uncertainty. He had solved problems at work with precision, diffused family tensions with patience, and navigated life's unpredictable turns with steady determination. Yet, that calm would soon be tested in ways he could never have imagined. For beneath the seemingly ordinary surface of his life, an unseen storm was quietly gathering, poised to shatter everything he thought he knew about love, trust, and loyalty. Little did Ahmad know that a single misplaced message arriving innocuously on his phone would set into motion a chain of events that would change his world forever. In the quiet of that ordinary evening, the first tremors of betrayal began to stir, and nothing would ever be the same again. Ahmad was settling into his evening routine when his phone buzzed on the kitchen counter. He reached for it without much thought, expecting the usual notifications, news alerts, social media updates, perhaps a message from a colleague. But the screen lit up with a message that made his heart stop cold. In a few days, I'll dump him and get all the money. At first, Ahmad blinked, convinced he had misread it. His mind scrambled to make sense of the words. Dump him? Money? What does this mean? A wave of disbelief swept over him. His hand trembled as he reread the message, line by line, hoping desperately that some mistake would make the words vanish. Panic began to take root. His chest tightened, and a cold sweat formed on his forehead. Could this be a joke? A prank? He thought about Lara, about the woman he had trusted with every part of his life, and the thought of her plotting something so cold and calculated made his stomach churn. He glanced around their quiet kitchen, the warm light of the overhead lamp suddenly seeming too harsh, too exposing. It was as if the walls themselves were closing in, judging him for not having seen this coming. Before he could gather his thoughts, another message arrived. Ahmed's fingers hesitated, hovering over the screen with a mix of dread and curiosity. The new text read, "Shrey, babe, that wasn't for you." Shock gave way to a deeper, more gnawing confusion. Not for me? Who else? And why would she say something like that to anyone at all? His mind spun through possibilities, each one darker and more horrifying than the last. Was there another man? Had she been planning this for weeks, months, right under his nose? Ahmad sank onto a chair, the phone trembling in his hand. Memories flickered through his mind. Lara's unexplained absences, the sudden interest in expensive gifts, the nights she spent working late when he knew her office hours were standard. Every small, seemingly insignificant detail now took on a menacing significance. The little lies, the hidden glances, the hurried texts she would hide when he entered the room. They all painted a picture of betrayal he never imagined. Yet beneath the fear and heartbreak, a strange clarity began to emerge. This wasn't the time for panic. He had to think, to act, to understand exactly what he was facing before confronting the reality of his wife's intentions. Ahmed's mind, usually calm and methodical, raced through possibilities, forming a plan to uncover the truth. He knew instinctively that whatever lay behind that wrong text, it would change his life forever. As the evening deepened, the silence of the house became almost unbearable. Ahmad stared at the phone, his mind haunted by the words that had arrived by mistake, or perhaps by fate. The storm had arrived, unannounced, and Ahmad could feel its first gusts tearing the fragile illusion of his peaceful life. By the time he went to bed that night, he knew that tomorrow would be a turning point, one that would unravel the life he thought he knew forever. The moment Ahmad laid his head on the pillow that night, sleep felt impossible. The words of the text haunted him relentlessly, each repetition like a drumbeat in his chest. In a few days, I'll dump him and get all the money. The casual brutality of the sentence, the way it hinted at betrayal and calculated greed, pierced deeper than any physical pain could. He turned his face to the ceiling, eyes wide, heart hammering, as if the very walls of the room were closing in on him. Memories began to surface, taunting him with their cruel irony. He thought of the small things he had once found endearing. Lara's coy smiles, her whispered reassurances, the way she would playfully hide her phone from him. Each moment now seemed like a carefully orchestrated act of deception. The laughter that once brought him joy now felt hollow. The shared glances he had cherished now felt like lies waiting to be unveiled. A shiver ran through him as he recalled the recent signs he had ignored. The nights she worked late, without explanation, the sudden interest in expensive gadgets, the secretive phone calls she took in another room. He had dismissed them as normal, innocent, perhaps even signs of stress. But now, in the unforgiving light of betrayal, they screamed of something far darker. How could I have been so blind? He thought bitterly. The realization of his own naivety burned like acid in his chest. Tears welled up unbidden, and he allowed himself to feel the depth of his pain. It was not merely anger. It was grief, humiliation, and disbelief all entwined in a knot that threatened to choke him. He felt the weight of years spent trusting someone completely, only to have that trust threaten to crumble in a single, accidental message. Ahmed's hands shook, and he found himself pacing the room, unable to stop the racing thoughts that bombarded his mind. Every what if and how could she echoed louder than the last. And yet, beneath the storm of emotions, a strange clarity began to take shape. Anger, though raw and consuming, sharpened his focus. He realized that while he could not control Lara's actions, he could control his response. Panic would serve no purpose. Devastation would achieve nothing. He needed evidence, a plan, a way to protect himself. The betrayal, horrifying as it was, had awakened a resolve he had never known he possessed. By the early hours of the morning, Ahmad was physically exhausted, but mentally, he was awake in a way he had never been before. The trembling hands, the tears, the racing heart, they had all served a purpose. They had stripped away the illusion of safety and comfort, revealing the stark truth. The world he thought he knew had shifted overnight, and he now stood on the edge of a precipice, staring into an uncertain future. As the first light of dawn crept through the curtains, Ahmad made a silent vow. He would uncover the full extent of Lara's betrayal. He would reclaim control over his life, his finances, and his dignity. And most importantly, he would ensure that the woman who had once been his partner could no longer manipulate him. The storm had arrived, and though it had shaken him to his core, Ahmad knew he would not be broken. The next morning, Lara awoke with her usual air of calm composure, seemingly unaware that her carefully constructed plan had begun to unravel. She moved around the house with a practiced ease, brewing coffee, humming softly, and exchanging polite greetings with Ahmad as though nothing had occurred. Yet Ahmed's eyes, now sharper and more observant than ever, caught the subtle cracks in her facade. Her smiles were slightly forced, the kind that reached her lips but never quite her eyes. The casual brush of her hand against his felt fleeting, as if she feared lingering too long. Even the way she placed her phone on the kitchen counter, ostensibly charging it, betrayed a tension he had never noticed before. Every gesture, once familiar and comforting, now seemed calculated, a performance meant to conceal something darker. Ahmad observed her quietly, pretending ignorance while his mind worked relentlessly. He noticed how she glanced at him out of the corner of her eye, then quickly looked away whenever he made eye contact. The subtle tightening of her jaw, the occasional pause in her speech. These small, almost imperceptible signs screamed deception. Lara, for all her charm, was no longer simply the woman he married. She had become a stranger, a figure of duplicity whose motives he could only begin to guess. Throughout the morning, she tried to maintain a semblance of normalcy. She asked about his day ahead, mentioned errands she planned to run, and even offered to make his favorite breakfast. Ahmad accepted her words with a neutral nod, carefully measuring his reactions. He knew that confronting her too soon would alert her, giving her the chance to cover her tracks or manipulate him further. He had learned, painfully, that appearances could be deceptive. Yet beneath her controlled demeanor, Ahmad sensed her anxiety. It was there in the quickened rhythm of her breathing, in the way she avoided lingering near him for more than a few moments, and in the faint tremor in her voice whenever she spoke. He could almost hear the internal panic she was trying so desperately to suppress. The woman who had once been his confidant now seemed trapped in a performance she could not sustain indefinitely. As the morning progressed, Ahmad realized something profound. Lara was no longer in command. The wrong text, her careless slip, had shifted the balance of power. She may have thought she was orchestrating the next move, plotting behind his back, but now he held the quiet advantage. And though he did not yet act, he understood that every smile she forced, every word she carefully chose, was a sign of her growing unease. Ahmed's mind began to plan meticulously. He would not let this betrayal remain shrouded in uncertainty. Lara's behavior, her nervous gestures, and her attempt at normalcy were all evidence of the truth he intended to uncover. The realization gave him a sense of calm amidst the storm, a reassurance that, despite the betrayal, he could still navigate the treacherous path ahead with clarity and purpose. By the time Lara finally left the room to run errands, Ahmad felt a renewed determination. He knew that the next steps would require patience, observation, and careful strategy. But one thing was certain. The wrong text had awakened a vigilance within him that no deceit could escape, and as he watched her disappear through the doorway, he silently vowed that he would not allow himself to be blindsided again. By mid-morning, the weight of the previous night's revelation was almost unbearable. Ahmad felt trapped in a storm of emotions, betrayal, anger, disbelief, and a strange, simmering determination. He realized that navigating this alone would only blur his judgment, leaving him vulnerable to rash decisions. He needed guidance, someone he could trust completely, someone who could offer perspective without judgment. Without hesitation, he called his best friend Mark. Mark had been a steady presence in his life for over a decade, someone whose calm reasoning and loyalty he had relied upon countless times. When Mark answered, Ahmad could barely keep his voice steady. I don't know what to do, Mark, he admitted, the words heavy with raw emotion. I got a text last night from Lara. It wasn't meant for me, but it's bad, Mark. Really bad. Mark's voice, calm yet firm, immediately grounded him. Take a deep breath. Ahmad, tell me exactly what it said. Ahmad explained everything. The careless message, the apology meant for someone else, and the gnawing suspicion that had haunted him since. He spoke in fragments at first, unable to articulate the full depth of his turmoil, but Mark listened patiently, without interruption, offering only short, measured responses that anchored him in reality. Once the story was out, Mark's tone hardened slightly. Ahmad, don't confront her yet. Not until you know exactly what's going on. You need evidence, proof, not assumptions. One wrong move and it could all slip away. For the first time since the night before, Ahmad felt a flicker of clarity. With Mark's guidance, he began formulating a plan, not out of revenge, but to protect himself and uncover the full truth. The storm had arrived, but with a trusted ally at his side, he felt ready to face it. Ahmad spent the next few days in quiet vigilance, his mind sharp and deliberate. Every interaction with Lara became a careful observation. Each glance, each word, each fleeting gesture was noted, cataloged, and analyzed. He knew he needed proof, concrete evidence, not mere suspicion. He began with the finances, going through bank statements. He noticed small, unusual transactions Lara had labeled as home repairs or gifts of friends, payments he never authorized, expenses that never materialized. His stomach sank as he realized a pattern. Someone was siphoning money, slowly and deliberately. Next, he turned to technology. He discreetly checked her social media, observing new interactions and unfamiliar contacts. Late-night messages, comments, and likes hinted at a connection she had hidden carefully. Ahmad even monitored her device quietly, syncing shared accounts to gather more information without alerting her. Hidden photos, unusual conversations, and small but undeniable signs of a secret life began to surface. With each discovery, the anger inside him grew, but so did a sense of control. Every shred of evidence strengthened his resolve. He was no longer a passive victim of circumstance. He was preparing, quietly, to confront the truth and reclaim his life. Step by deliberate step, Ahmed's investigation soon uncovered the final piece of the puzzle, the man at the center of Lara's secret. His heart pounded as he pieced together the clues. Late-night messages, shared locations, and cryptic social media interactions. The truth, once obscured, now stood glaringly clear. The man was Derek, Lara's gym trainer, a younger, flashy figure who exuded charm and confidence. Their conversations, which Ahmad accessed carefully, revealed a calculated plan. Not just an affair, but a scheme to manipulate and take advantage of him financially. Derek's arrogance was evident in messages like, "Just a few more days. Everything will be ours. He won't suspect a thing. After she leaves, it's all set." Ahmed's chest tightened as he read their exchanges, each word a dagger to the trust he had once placed in his wife. The betrayal was no longer abstract. It had a name, a face, and a timeline. Shock and anger surged, but alongside them came focus. With Derek identified and Lara's intentions laid bare, Ahmad could now act strategically. He would not confront them recklessly. Instead, he would gather the evidence, plan carefully, and ensure that the web of deceit was fully exposed. The storm was approaching, and he was finally ready to face it head-on. That night, Ahmad moved with quiet precision. He copied every message screenshot and bank record, securing them in a folder labeled Truth. Joint accounts were frozen, credit cards canceled, and savings moved to a secure personal account. He contacted a lawyer to prepare for immediate action and set up hidden cameras in the living room, ready to capture every reaction. Emotionally, he steeled himself, suppressing anger and heartbreak beneath a calm exterior. By dawn, he would confront Lara, not with chaos, but with undeniable evidence. The stage was set, and the storm was ready to break. Lara woke, blissfully unaware that her plan was unraveling. She moved with practiced ease, smiling and chatting as if nothing had happened. Ahmad remained calm, watching, waiting. When she tried to use her card, it was declined. Confusion flashed across her face, quickly morphing into panic. Ahmad's voice was steady as he said, "Sit down. We need to talk." He presented the printed messages, screenshots, and bank records. Lara's forced composure crumbled. Words failed her as reality sank in. Her secret had been exposed. For the first time, Ahmad held the power, and she knew it. With Derek gone and Lara's secrets fully exposed, Ahmad felt a strange mix of relief and lingering hurt. The betrayal had cut deep, but the clarity of truth offered a sense of control he hadn't felt in months. He took immediate steps to secure his life, finalizing legal actions, reclaiming finances, and ensuring that no further manipulation could touch him. Lara, humiliated and remorseful, packed her essentials and left the house, her apologies falling on ears that no longer wished to hear them. Ahmad didn't respond. The years of trust she had shattered could not be repaired overnight, and he knew some wounds demanded distance, not reconciliation. In the quiet aftermath, Ahmad allowed himself to breathe again. He leaned on Mark, grateful for a friend who had guided him through the storm. Each day, he felt lighter, freer, and more resolute. The pain of betrayal was fading, replaced by a sense of empowerment. Standing on his balcony at sunset, Ahmad watched the city below, the golden light reflecting his newfound strength. That wrong text, once a dagger to his heart, had become the catalyst for liberation. For the first time in years, he felt in control of his life and ready to embrace the future. Weeks had passed since Lara's departure, yet Ahmad felt no desire to dwell on the past. The betrayal still stung, but it no longer controlled him. Each morning, he woke with a sense of clarity and purpose he hadn't known for years. The storm had passed, leaving him stronger, wiser, and more self-aware. Lara tried reaching out, calls, messages, even emails filled with apologies and pleas. But Ahmad remained silent. He had learned the hard way that some bridges, once burned, could not be rebuilt. His life was his own again, free from manipulation and deceit. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Ahmad stood on his balcony, feeling the cool breeze brush against his face. The city lights twinkled like distant stars, and he allowed himself a small, satisfied smile. The wrong text, which had once threatened to destroy him, had instead revealed the truth and given him the chance to reclaim his life. For the first time in years, Ahmad felt truly at peace. He had faced betrayal, uncovered deceit, and emerged unbroken. And as darkness settled softly around him, he whispered to himself, "I am free, and nothing can take that away."